Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to find great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way to exit highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you can create, preserve, and grow your wealth. I'm your co host, Pierce New York, filling in for Brett Swarts. And each episode, I'm joined by some of the best wealth, business, real estate, and leadership individuals in the world to share ideas, deal stories, and inspirations so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're also streaming on expertcresecrets.com, the Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel. And I also wanted to just introduce to you guys our guest who has been in the real estate world for almost 24 years now. Made the switch from multifamily to hotels. So we're going to learn all about that. He's going to add a ton of value. So Mike Stohler. Mike, how you doing, man?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike, why don't you tell us your story?
Yeah, I started out in real estate in what I call the pre-Google days before you had wonderful podcasts, wonderful places to learn. Bought 7 or 8 units and failed miserably because it was crazy. Buying is easy. How to be a landlord and be successful at it. I didn't have the internet. That's how old I am. So failed miserably, but I knew that that's the way to do it. That's how, like you're saying, with the tax breaks and just the deferments and all the solutions. Fast forward, and I've owner managed 1,500 units. Now I have about a dozen homes, couple hotels, and in between all that, Navy veteran airline pilot, and just having fun.
Awesome. So, tell me a little bit about your your gifts. What are one or two things that you have that have led you to be successful today?
Yeah, that's a great question. The biggest thing is I think when you learn in the military, you learn, when I failed, that you really need mentors. So I'm not the type of person that sits there and says, "Hey, I've got this ego. I can do it on my own. I don't need to spend money on business mentoring or how to do things." So that's one of my strengths, is just learning and being a very good learner so that you learn from other people's mistakes. Another thing is I think the military and airline pilot, I'm a very analytical checklist type of a person. So I don't get emotionally involved in anything that I buy. The numbers have to work. Everything has to fall in place. And man, I may love the location, I may love the asset, but if it doesn't have those 2 or 3 different drivers that I'm looking for, I pass on it. And I think that's extremely important and one of the biggest reasons why I've been successful.
Yeah, and you talked about how you failed miserably in the beginning.
Mm.
So obviously, managing 1,500 doors, you figured some stuff out. So what's the number one secret to being a killer landlord?
Yeah, you know what I did? It was I just knew if I just learned that side of it, uh, I could really succeed. So what I did is I actually quit my job and worked for a very large property management firm for just a little while, just so I can use their forms and just kind of learn how to do it. And some of the things that I learned again is that emotional thing. People are going to give you every sob story in the book. I mean, they are just going, I've just done this and did that and I can't pay my rent. And you have to sit there and again, take that emotional side out of it and say, you know what? This is a decision. My bank doesn't care that you can't pay your rent. So I still have to come up with my payment, right? So you have to make business decisions. That's something I learned early on, is not to buy into any of the stories, because that story is going to turn into another story and then another story. And then your other tenants are going to learn that they gave you sob stories and then they want to do it. And so you're going to fail. So stick to your guns, make smart business decisions, and you'll be a good landlord.
Yeah, that's interesting. So how do you kind of walk that line between, having that compassion and for people, and
Mhm.
sometimes people do fall on hard times. Like when how do you discern what's true and what's not, or are you just a hard ass the whole time, and you're
No, no, I'm not a hard ass the entire time. Look, if one thing, if you've paid on time every month for 2 years, and then all of a sudden something came up, I might be a little more lenient. If man, after the first month, it's just the excuses start coming, then I'm like going, now you know what, you got to prove yourself to me. And even some of the good ones, it's like, all right, send me a letter from your boss, or show me something. Don't just and you tell them, it's like, look, I want to have some compassion. You got to show me some proof, and it's just for my files. Tell them whatever excuse you want. This is for my files. This is just so that we can confirm that something's going on. If something is going on, we'll work with you. I'll put you in touch with some charities that can help you pay your rent. So we do help some people out, but I learned, man, it's just get some proof, get some, just don't take their word for it, because 99% of the time they're just blowing smoke. You're on mute.
What type of
There
property
you
class were you investing in at that point, where you were getting that
go.
type of tenant?
Yeah, I have always stuck with the lower B to the C. The A's are all the REITs, the corporate and things like that, and just extremely small rates of return, cap rates. I like the C's because the C's, um, your tenant's not going to move a lot. They can't afford to move. So all they want is something clean,
Mm,
nice, uh, a roof over their head. And as long as you're keeping everything clean and keeping the riffraff out, you get some really, really good tenants in the C class type neighborhoods. I've had some of the D's. I thought they were C's, they were D's. I'm like, oh my God, you know,
yeah,
it's like, oh,
nightmare.
it's like, oh, it's not, picking up needles on the stairs, and just, just the trash. And um, I'm like, oh my God, people,
Yeah.
I could just like condemn this place, but you don't. You get rid of them. You do what you can. It's a business decision. You made the choice to purchase it. Do what you got to do.
How how do you how do you determine what like building you're going to be buying?
Yeah, good question. And it's different. When we're talking multifamily, I do a market analysis on how many C classes are in there. What are their market rents? Then I do a lot of research on. I get the rent rolls, and I see when did people start moving in. What are their rents? Because you learn really quick that, man, this place is 95% occupied. But if you're not careful, you didn't realize that they put everyone in a month ago, which means they're not vetted. They're just trying to make their numbers look good. And so there's that. But then when I look at buildings, I sit there and say, okay, how can I improve this? And is it in a market where I can improve it? All the comps might be better apartment complexes, and that's why they're getting performers of higher rents. But in that specific neighborhood, I may be tapped out, even though 4 blocks away they're paying 100 $150 more. So you have to really do some research on that specific neighborhood or that side of the street or whatever you want to say, and then sit there and say, okay, how can I do the value add? How can I do I have to go in and I know that there needs new carpeting, or new plumbing, or new parking lot, new paint. You just sit there and just you do. I'm a spreadsheet junkie, and do just
Okay.
all of that analysis to find out if I even want to do that building or not.
You mentioned you had a checklist. So do you have, obviously you have a buying criteria, right? That I
Hmm.
think that's what I was kind of really getting at is what's
Hmm.
your buying criteria?
Yeah, the buying criteria is, and it's different because I was in multifamily last 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So my buying criteria was a little bit different than now, which is just crazy. My buying criteria was, can I go in and cut expenses, improve rents, yeah, increase the cap rates, increase the NOI, and how much labor intensive is it going to be to turn uh, the type of attitude around in that type of apartment complex. So
Interesting.
that's really my buying criteria. I walk around at night, walk around on the weekends, just to see what everyone's doing at the apartment complex, especially at night. If
That's
everyone's out,
interesting.
everyone's out in the cars and there's street parties going on and drugs and all that sort of stuff at night, do you want that headache? Um, and I do that to every single property. Even at the hotels, I'll walk around at night, walk around the block just to see what's going on at night around the block. And if
Yeah.
everything kind of goes in and checks out, and I can sit there and say, okay, I can actually increase rents. The management right now is being stupid because they're paying this, this, and this, which I can get, $40 a door cheaper. Then I'll go in and do it.
Interesting. Okay. Um, so two more questions on this, and then I know you made the switch, so I want to dig into that. You said you were self-managed. So
Yep.
are you still self-managed? Do you
hmm
have like a property management company that you've created, or are you just
hmm
basically the only one doing it, or how is that working?
Oh no, I'm not the only one doing it. Something, and that's another thing that you learn when you have the business mentors. There's a point where you're going to be very static, and going to be a point in everyone's entrepreneurial career, landlord career, where you sit there and say, okay, you know what? I now have to spend money to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at that point where it's like, I'm spending so much time doing the minimum wage jobs, and I'm not doing the boss job, which is finding more assets because I'm
Yeah.
paying bills. I'm calling the plumbers. I'm doing all this sort of stuff, and I could never grow. So I finally sat there and said, okay, you know what? I need to get a manager for these apartment complexes. The hotels, I need good general managers. I need operations people. I need salespeople. I need a maintenance guy. So you delegate, but it was to the point where I didn't need to get property management groups. At the very beginning, when I was a pilot and I had properties, I learned really quick that the property management groups nickel and dimed me,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't making any money because they were just, they charged me $50 every time they went out to the property. They're just doing all this sort of stuff, and I was like, just like, screw it, I'll do it on my own.
Interesting. Okay. And then there came a point in your life when you're like, all right, I'm done with multifamily for the
Mhm.
most part. I'm gonna make a switch to hotels. So talk about that and what made you switch and how did that whole process go?
Yeah, what made me switch is I had an apartment complex. I had it for just a few months. It was under a year, and I'm in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area.
Okay.
Cap rates were just going nuts, and I was sitting fat and happy with these, what I had and what I owned. I was golfing. I was having fun. There's a group that came out. The apartment complex wasn't even for sale, and they said, "Hey, bam, we want this apartment complex. This is what we're going to pay you." And I was like, "Wow, okay, but uh, no." We went back and forth 4 times. They said, let's just come out and see it. I'm like, oh, I don't care what you do. I'm not selling it. Well, they finally gave me a price that I'd be an idiot not to take. Made 7 figures in less than a year.
Wow.
Um, and so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Um, Another part of being a landlord, you have to sit there and you have to network everyone. If you want to grow your business, network, network, network. Um, so I knew people that were in hotels, but then I was like, okay, I can go back into multifamily, but at that time, uh, do I want something at 3%?
Yeah.
3.5. What kind of a headache? How many years? It's just what can I do? And so I was talking to a buddy that was in hotels, and he goes, "Yeah, hotels because it's not that." There's not an HGTV episode on how to flip hotels, right? Or
Yeah.
how to buy hotels. So no, it's not the normal um, thing that everyone does in the world. So he goes, we can get hotels at 10. We don't use cap rates, but if you did convert cap rates, it'd be 10, 12%. Um, so I said, okay, and I was like, I'll tell you what, I don't know anything about hotels, but you have to learn. You have to sit there and how can I be out of the box? I want you to find me a hotel because I don't know how to do it. I'm going to be your fly on the wall during this whole process. I want you to operate it, and I'll pay you. I'll make you a partner on the back end and actually give you some ownership. And that got me into the hotel space, and I've loved it ever since. COVID was very fun, but
Yeah, I
that
bet.
that was I had hair prior to COVID, but no, I'm kidding. But that's how I got started in the hotels, is just because I was like, I don't want to take this money and do a three cap. I'd rather get into something that not everyone. There's not a lot of competition or less competition.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you had a huge liquidity event,
Mhm.
right? So how did you deal with the tax?
1031.
All right. And what is your biggest frustration with a 1031?
That I can't touch it. I want to be able to touch it. No, there's not really the frustrations. I guess because I've done so many 1031s. Uh, every time I sold something, I did a 1031. That's how I went from a single family house to 1,500 units and a couple hotels. I just kept 1031ing, and then finally got into syndications and things like that. Um, but the frustration is finding the right, what do you call it? The middle person, one
Broker?
that it's the 1031
Oh,
exchange,
the exchange
the
accommodator?
exchange accommodator. Um, just one that knows the commercial space and how to do some things. There's some frustrations between them and the bankers and things like that. Just how long it takes, to do some of the stuff. So that was really the only frustration. But I'm so used to it now that it's not a big deal.
So your biggest frustration with a 1031 is just having those exchange accommodators not
Mm.
really knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, especially on like the commercial side. They do so many houses and apartment complex and things like that. But when you get into the difference between hotel and multifamily is, hotels an actual business, right?
Right.
Um, and it takes sometimes 6, 7, 8 months to close these things. I mean, it takes a long time to close these things. And now you're sitting there with this person, what's going on? Why aren't we doing this? And I'm like going, it's how long it takes. Um, so that's frustrating, but I've learned a lot with hotel space, and you're in the capital gains and different tax solutions. It's like, man, once you get into things with like cost segregations and all that fun stuff, it's like there are some really good tax solutions out there once you get into commercial properties and businesses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have you ever used a deferred sales trust?
I have not. No, I haven't needed to. Um, I've always found stuff. Um, So no, I have not done that. Haven't needed to, but I get people, if you don't find anything, put it in this deferred sales trust, and yeah, I think it's a good thing to do. I just haven't had the need yet.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, especially because one of the big things that we constantly see is people are like, I can't find an upleg in the
Hmm.
45 days to identify,
Hmm.
180 days to close. So are you doing like a reverse 1031 where you're finding the upleg first and then you're going into it?
Yep,
Or
I have done that,
gotcha.
and especially when you get into like hotels and things like because it not only do you have the identify process, but then you have now you have to close. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, I'm really rushing here, to try to get some of this stuff done.
Right.
And it's just it's a very long process because now you have not only the buyer and the seller, and now the 1031 exchange person and all the bankers, and now you have maybe a hotel franchise, Marriott, Hilton, Radisson, Wyndham, you have that leg. And it's like, okay, people, I got to close on this thing. I got to get going. I got to put this money,
Yeah.
to use. I've identified you. I want to buy you. And it's like, come on, I now need to close.
Yep. Definitely. Awesome. Well, Mike, what do you think has been the most rewarding thing that you've done in the commercial real estate space?
I love having employees that, it's different now, that I have so many employees, and I like going in and knowing that I can help them earn a paycheck. It's each hotel's like a family. I didn't really get that in multifamily, basically because it's like didn't want to go in because they didn't want to deal with tenants. Hotels are just very different. Um, I love paying the distributions, for the investors, and basically the most rewarding thing is, I've stuck with this, and I have this thing above my office, and it's really starting to come true. It's my motto is build a life that you don't need a vacation from. And to me, that is the kind of the
Well,
most rewarding thing. I've come from ultimate failure to finally getting to a point where it's like, hey, I can golf, I can take time off, I can work from anywhere in the world, and to me, that's very rewarding to finally get to that point.
awesome. Okay. Are you buying right now? What's your plan during this whole
Yeah.
market issue?
Well, my plan was, and still is, but it's kind of going slower because I'm kind of waiting for November
Okay.
to see kind of what it does after that. No matter if it flips, if it doesn't flip,
The election.
the election, and that will determine a lot, on whether or not which way the economy goes. There's a lot of times before or right after the elections that you get this big stock market jump and the economy jump, or it tank. It just so we're kind of waiting. But what we're doing is we're doing a mixed use build is going to be our next project. But I'm just waiting. It's like going, damn it, quit. It just went up 0.75 basis points again. So the issue that we're getting in now is, all right, it's a hotel, and not a lot of banks do hotels, and they get kind of scared with, okay, well, what's the economy going to do? So we're just kind of waiting this thing out a little bit. But I'm in negotiations with some land, but that's the next goal.
So you're getting into full ground up development.
Yep. Yeah. Now there's two different things. There's a group of investors that wants to do hotel flipping.
Okay.
And what that is you go in and let's say you take an older hotel that's been around for a while, and there are some very, very, very good brands out there that it doesn't take a lot of what we call PIP work or conversion and just refurbishing. And
Mhm.
so you can go in and take something that just was really mismanaged, poorly run. They never updated it. Go in, put X amount of dollars into it, change the flag or the franchise, and then set it up and sell it. There's a lot of institutional buyers, the big guys, that go out and buy these hotels, but they don't want to build necessarily because they need a return on their asset immediately, for the shareholders. So we go in and buy, flip it, and then sell it to them.
Gotcha.
Kind of like flipping multifamily, but on an institutional commercial level.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So that's kind of the new play for you, and where you're
Mhm.
seeing the market is you're going after institutional money and basically just tapping into that market that you know doesn't really have the capacity because they have obligations to shareholders.
Mhm.
So now you're coming in and you're filling that gap. providing that value, getting hotels up to go. Do they have a certain like buy criteria that you have to meet in order to get there? Or you're just like
Mm.
any sort of room count or anything like that? Or are you just like,
Well, sure. Yeah, they do. For a boutique hotel, they like 50 rooms,
okay,
and then they like 80 or more on just a regular hotel. Um, if you have two or three hotels that are in the, like the 60 to 80, then they can do that as a package. But a lot of times, sometimes it's location. They may sit there and say, "Hey, you know what? We'd really like that location," and they may have someone further down the road um, add on to it if there's real estate
mm-hmm.
and make it into a 120 room hotel.
Interesting. Okay, so what markets are you looking at then?
That's prior to COVID. It was the markets were a lot bigger that I was looking at. COVID has really, really changed the way that we think about hotels. We have uh, now looked at on a state level, and I'm not getting. I don't want to get political here but it's their business decisions, right? Do I want to buy a hotel that its state where it's located forced them to close? I have to now think about that, where before I didn't have to think about any of that stuff.
Basically, you're staying out of California.
Yeah, basically, I'm staying out of Pacific Northwest, Chicago, New York, those types of. I was looking at pre-COVID some California properties that are just beautiful, but now there's no way I can do it. You look at
For
other
sure.
states, and they allowed you to be open, and not only did they allow you to be open, we're an essential business.
So Texas,
Texas,
Florida,
Arizona, Florida.
all
Yeah,
conservative states.
I didn't want to go there, but
I know, but it's the truth, right? Like it's just what it is. It's numbers. It's not. It's not an opinion here.
it's a business decision. There's a lot of my friends that went out of business that had wonderful hotels,
Yep.
but it's because and here's the thing is they were forced to close for 6 or 7 months. Their bank only gave them 3 months deferment. Where are they going to come up with 40, 50,000 a month,
Yeah.
and then rebuild? And then now the employees don't want to, and it's that really changed. So the what I call the free states
Hmm.
is where we're looking at. I love Arizona because I just know uh, in Florida, Georgia, they're destination states.
Yep.
So what we look at as far as criteria is like prior to COVID, I'd say, okay, what's the driver? In other words, why are people? What drives them to stay at this hotel? It used to be, man, if you could find a hotel next to university, you're golden. Well, that is if they were going to school. A lot of them failed. So now we need several drivers. Okay, what are the three reasons that someone would go to that city? And now we have that criteria. Um, you can't have just one reason. It's a ski resort. Well, you know what happens.
Yeah.
University. Well, it's near a state fair. It's near a resort. Well, so you need highway. Does it have truck driver parking? There's two. Is it how close is it? And now we love it if it's just outside of a major metro, because that's where people kind of gravitating more in the country instead of the urban living. So it's changed our way of thinking.
Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting. Okay. All right. So, Mike, we're coming up on our time here, but I want to get you into the lightning round before we go. But before that, where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, website gatewaype.com. It's gateway P as in Papa, E as in Echo.com. LinkedIn under Michael Stohler, Stohler. Those are the two best ways. And then I get so many people wanting me to do things on LinkedIn, just tell me that where you heard me, and knowing that it's from this podcast, and I'll answer any questions you guys might have.
Awesome. And if you guys are interested at all, I know we really didn't get into it, but the Deferred Sales Trust is an alternative to a 1031 exchange. It has some awesome benefits with equity, kind of changing out the equity for different assets. It's like-kind agnostic. You don't have time constraints like you do with 1031s. And it allows you to cash flow and reinvest in real estate when you're ready to go. So it's a great alternative to a 1031. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We have a webinar or a mastermind every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So Mike, I'll invite you to that. And come bring your CPAs, learn about it. It's absolutely awesome. So there's our little plug there. All right, Mike, ready to get in the lightning round?
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right, Mike, what is your favorite leadership quote?
Well, it's the one that I said earlier. Don't do this for the money, because the money's going to come. Okay. Find your why. For me, it was building a life I didn't need a vacation from. And that came from a business mentor, on him trying to tell me, he goes, find your why.
Yep. What is your favorite book?
One that changed me was, it's called The Secrets of the Rich, by a guy named John Burley.
Okay.
It teaches you the millionaire next door and the things like that. The guy that's really rich doesn't have to prove anything. He doesn't have to have the $5,000 suits. So what are the secrets that they're doing to keep your wealth?
They're wearing Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops.
That's right.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Buying 4-year-old, they have 4-year-old cars that are, the average multi-millionaire has a 4-year-old car that's paid off, because they don't need to prove anything, man. They've got their 3 houses. They spend their money other places.
Yeah. Okay. What are you most curious about right now?
Curious?
Yes.
Well, it's the curiosity. It's the economy. It's the world. It's making that jump. It's like, okay, believing that we're going to make it out of this in 2 or 3 years, so that I can build a hotel and have confidence in it. The Ukraine, Russian, the euro. It's just it's a different time, and I'm curious to see if Washington is going to be able to fix it.
Right.
I know. I was trying not to laugh, but I was just like, please put someone.
Yeah.
God help us.
That's a different conversation altogether. Yeah. I would venture to guess that most people who listen to this type of podcast are kind of along the same mindset. Let's just get some common sense in there, and let's just
let's save on taxes instead of raising. Certain one side is like, hey, I want to make as much money as I can and legally not pay any taxes until I'll be dead, and I still won't pay the taxes. I'm just going to 1031 or defer it or till I die.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And that's the benefit of linking up with Capital Gains Tax Solutions and guys like Mike Stohler. They teach you these types of strategies that you can use. The tax code, is 2 pages of how to pay taxes, and the other, 6 billion pages or whatever it is, right, is how to not pay taxes. So, leverage it, because it's there. So, all right. Well, guys, connect with Mike up on LinkedIn. And make sure to check out his website at gatewaype.com. If you want to connect up with him, drop him a message. He'll respond, mention this podcast. And thanks again, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle with clarifying great capital gains tax deferral options, not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy such as 1031 exchange or deferred sales trust, a fantastic way to exit highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you create, preserve, and grow your wealth. Guys, please rate, review, subscribe. Don't forget to come to the mastermind, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Register there every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Bring your people. It's awesome, and you'll get a ton from it. So, Mike, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And guys, we'll see you on the next one.
Take care, everyone.